What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Brave and Faithful podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Radian Dionisio. Today, I'm joined by a Navy veteran, and he's also the founder and creator of Well Past 40, also an author of the book Kaboomer, and also a grandparent, proud grandparent, Dave Frost. How you doing, Dave?
Living the dream, Ray, and thanks so much for taking part of your day to chat with me.
Well, thank you for taking the time to share your story. Before we get started and talking about Well Past 40 and the book, can you just share with our audience a little bit about your service in the Navy, how long you served for, what you did, and things like that?
Oh, sure. Try to make it brief. I have been around a few blocks a few times, so I'll try to do the Reader's Digest. Came from a service family, like many of your listeners, I'm sure. My dad was a Navy guy in the World War II and Korean ages. Both grandfathers served in the Army. My uncle is a proud Army retiree, and now here I am, next in line as a Navy retiree. So I was commissioned as a midshipman in the United States Navy on 30 June 1971, just 50 years ago. So if I sound a little gnarly, I am old and gnarly. But I had 4 wonderful years at the Naval Academy, learning how to lead and how to handle technology, how to work with people. I was commissioned in the surface warfare community. I was in charge of nuclear weapons. My kids think it's really funny that they sometimes think I am a little sloppy, that I was in charge of nuclear weapons and never lost any. So that was a good thing. I was also very pleased I never had to use any. But hopefully some of your listeners are like me, that were ready to fire, but never had to fire in times of conflict. So being in the Navy, I was a little more remote than some of your listeners for running to the sound of guns. But I served on active duty on ships and staffs in frigates, minesweepers, and operational staffs until President Clinton signed my get out of the blue suit papers in 1997. So it's been a while since I've been on active duty. Tried to stay involved, working as a admissions rep for the Naval Academy, supporting wounded warriors in rowing programs, and trying to give a little back for so many that have done so much. So hopefully that was short enough, Braden.
So you joined, you said 71 and retired in 97. I mean, that's 20, almost 30 years of service, right? And I'm sure you've seen a lot of growth, transition, change, not just in the Navy, but within the military. Like, what was some of your biggest takeaway? Like, what are some of the biggest changes you've experienced during that time?
Well, if I can mention one thing, and I'm sure all Navy veterans were tremendously saddened by having a Navy ship burn at the pier, Bonhomme Richard, a great name, back all the way back to John Paul Jones. As President Kennedy said when he addressed the Naval Academy graduating class in 1961, John Paul Jones said, "It gave me a fast ship, for I intend to go into harm's way." And we lost a capital ship of America's Navy pier side. So that is something that I just have to mention because it bothers me so much. And yet what I've seen is ships named after folks like maybe some of your listeners did a MRF on Memorial Day. God bless the folks that did a MRF, and God bless Daniel Patrick Murphy for doing what he did as a Navy SEAL to earn the Medal of Honor and have a Navy ship named after him. So in some ways, I'm kind of beating around the bush that some things change, but some things don't. The Navy is built on people first, technology and gray things second. And yeah, some things change, but an awful lot doesn't. Trust doesn't change, honor doesn't change, ethics don't change, character doesn't change. So ships may change, but the oceans haven't gotten any smaller. The world, in my opinion, hasn't gotten any more peaceful. So I am so thankful that we have violent people guarding over us so that we can sleep well at night. I hope we'll always have folks that will run to the sound of the guns because their nation calls. It's just, here right after Memorial Day and right before the 56 and 21, 79 years after D-Day, just a tremendously opportune time to chat about service and honor folks that do their best in in the midst of change. So I didn't really answer what's changed. Ships are faster, sailors are brighter. I know that because they are. But technology has changed. But you know, the sea is there, missions are there. Strategy is always the same. Everyone listens to Mahan from over a century ago. Operations may change a little, tactics may change, and enemies may change. But I kind of like it that America's the world's policeman, and hopefully will stay that way.
Yeah, you know, I mean, to your point, a lot of things change, right? But it boils down to the people and the people who man the ships, who man the rails and things like that, right? It all boils down to the Americans who are, like you said, the violent people that are guarding our nation right now out there, wherever they are. So, you know, I appreciate you for sharing that.
And I might offer as well that, you know, I learned early on that the military is a wonderful melting pot for society. You know, that airplane is colorblind. It doesn't care what the color of a pilot or a crewman's skin is. Neither does the ship. So yes, there's stories about inequities and so on, but I think the military has done a pretty darn good job of representing the fabric of America with the folks that wear the uniform, number one, and number two, and that goes for all walks of life and all ethnic backgrounds. The second thing is, I think we're a better Navy with women in it. I was in a time of service, you know, generations change and things do change. Back to your earlier question, Raiden, I think that the balance brought to leadership, operations, and tactics in the military is better because women are now much more involved than they were in my day, half a century ago. So those are powerful things. The military, I think, has done not a perfect job because it's a big organization, but I think it's done a darn good job at looking at DE&I, and I think it's done a darn good job of blending in the service of gender. So for what it's worth, there's some very positive changes.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. With inclusivity, with doesn't matter the gender, culture, ethnicity, or anything like that. I definitely agree with that. So, Dave, going back to your transition, you know, it's been over, what, let's say 24 years since you transitioned
Yes.
out. What would you say, like, what was the biggest difference transitioning then to how maybe some of the experiences that our veterans or military members are having now with their transition?
Yeah, what a powerful question. And I guess there are a lot of facets to an answer. But one of the things is you kind of have to choose what you're, after COVID, thank goodness we're crawling out of this gap here.
Right.
But folks that are perhaps going back to the office or even working from home, you kind of have to choose what you're going to wear to work. For the years of service, you were kind of told what you were going to wear to work. So that's one thing. You don't get 3 squares a day. Well, maybe somebody's going to inspect your bed if you have a demanding partner. But some things tactically do change. Your battle rhythm changes. Maybe you had 3 squares a day, but you're not a breakfast person. Maybe you're a night hawk. So adapting to your own business rhythm and battle rhythm is very important. You kind of did the organizational thing in an amazing way for the years of service. Now you're kind of in charge of your own destiny, you know, and that relates to fitness, wellness, and lifestyle. So those are things that some people are very comfortable branching out, but there's some people that really like the structure. I would offer that most jobs, unless they're first responders or some sectors, are not as, if you will, organized for be here at this time, do this, and that sort of thing. So it is more independence. I think folks hopefully can find a happy blend of that organizational rigor that they lived under, yet find their own autonomy, mastery, and purpose as they forge ahead in the next chapter of their lives of service. Easily said, hard to do, but I think it starts with just realizing it's a new chapter. The page is turned and things are a little bit different in some ways. Start from the bottom to the top tactically. You know, you can still make your bed, just like Admiral McRaven told us, make your bed, or rack. But from there on, there's a lot more independence and a lot more ability to do things your way in the way that you see fit. So bottom to top, just realize that some things are going to change. Like you got to make your own coffee if you're a coffee drinker. So operationally, golly, I don't think now, particularly with telecommuting, folks don't move as much as they did in their life of uniform service, and that's okay. Certainly with the price of homes in your home state and my adopted state of California, it's getting darn expensive to move here. So luckily, folks can hopefully work remotely and have the best of both worlds, have a lifestyle you can live comfortably. I mean, one of the platitudes that maybe you've heard, and I'd love to share, one of the classic career transition remarks is, do what you love what you do, and figure out how to keep the lights on. And if someone is intent on living in a big city of LA, that person better understand what it's going to cost with the sunshine tax to live in LA. State taxes are high. You don't have the benefit of free car registration, car tags like you do in the military. And you don't have the benefit, some retirees do have the benefit of living in tax protected states, but California is not one of those. So be aware of where you're going to drop anchor or park your tank. But just know that there was a lot of tax-free income for folks in uniform, and there's not a lot of tax-free income when you get out and you're on your own, either working for yourself or working for a small, medium, or large corporation. Not as much free lunch. Never was free lunch. You earned every meal that we ate in the military, but that is a little different. It costs more to live.
So going back to your transition, Dave, like we mentioned, you served over for 26 years. Was there a specific time when you were transitioning? Was there any like challenges? What were some of the challenges that you had to overcome, and how did you overcome those moments?
Really great question. I was pretty newlywed. We had a couple years together. When I was on active duty. You mentioned earlier my combined service, because that was a midshipman commission service and then reserve service. So active duty and then reserve. But when we were on active duty, my wife and I moved a couple times and we did not have kids. So every veteran is different. So we were double income, no kids. We were able to establish a home in San Diego, and we're each able to find work at that point. So that's okay. So we didn't have the very exciting baggage of kids and things like that to worry about. So again, I would stress that each of your listener who is transitioning has a different situation. You just have to rack and stack what you have working for you, and factors that might be almost takeaways when you think about cost of living, how many mouths you have to feed, what your goals are for perhaps saving for college education, those sorts of things. So the biggest challenge in mine was making sure that my wife and I were leaving on the same train, that, we were all aboard the same train with the same mission. And she and I, she's a Scorpio and I'm a Pisces. And in some ways we complement each other very well, but in some ways we have different ideas. So for those of your listeners who do have life partners or spouses, make sure that you're on the same train and talk often about shared, you don't have to agree on everything, but at least talk out goals and desires. Because in my case, shifting from guarding our nation against the Russians was a big deal from my first job when I was analyzing weapons systems. So I transitioned into defense and aerospace, and yet it's not quite as heady as guarding nuclear weapons or leading a division of 30-something sailors in my case. So it's really good to talk things out. And if even if folks are bachelors or bachelorettes, it's really good to talk to someone. You shouldn't feel that you're alone and have to do everything yourself. And by all means, if even if you're on your own, make sure your family members understand where you think you're headed, and know that you can change destinations. Not everything is a nonstop. I mean, I don't think many of our parents had well, maybe a lot of our parents had a single employer. But I know I've had many employers since I left the Navy, and that's been good. You know, life has been full of different experiences and big gulps, but none of them were as big gulp as the Navy was. So that is a come down in some ways, where you're not leading 30 people in mission critical, time sensitive missions. You're not deployed and away from home. When I was deployed, we didn't have email, we didn't have Zoom and Skype. But in some ways, we learned how to write letters, and we learned how to live in separate lives. And the good news is we use technology now so that deployed people are able to live a little closer to home, and at least, you know, hear little ones growing up and I miss you, mommy, or I miss you, daddy. We didn't have that, but in some ways, I was just fine with that. You know, you single up and you leave, it's a deployment. And you hope that, you know, you hope when you get home, your loved ones are waiting for you. So get everybody on board, talk a lot with and we have so many support organizations, the Veterans Administration. Here in San Diego, we have a 211. We have a very vital taxpayer underwritten veterans committee at the county. So there's support networks, and sometimes it may be a little hard to navigate and find them. But please, never, 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 never think you're alone. You know, you're not a sniper. You're a member of a powerful team. You know. So.
Yeah, that's a great point you bring up, Dave. Especially if you're married, right? You want to make sure, like you said, you're on the same train. You're on the same ride in life, right? You know, even if you know, your significant other has different aspirations, you want to make sure you communicate what your goals are and what you want to accomplish, because you know, you want to make sure you have the support that you need in order for you to pursue whatever goal that may be.
Very much so, and I would have to look back in retrospection and say the chemistry. The result is the same. A happy wife, happy life in my case, you know, being a guy, and my wife doesn't do anything, or I don't do anything drastic, and the next month it'll be 46 years of bliss. But there really is something, and a lot I see about how do you get through a COVID period, deployed or not deployed? How do you get through in a tough situation like that? And the best answer is you do it together. And it's just, it's a lot of work, you know, the old platitude about if you think you give 75% of the relationship, you're probably doing okay, you know, because your significant other also thinks that he or she has given 75%. Right. So somehow you come to 50-50. Sometimes you win. Sometimes I wouldn't call it a loss. I would just say it's a mutual outcome, not a win or a loss. It's an outcome. So
there you go. So for those of you guys just joining in, talking to Dave Frost, author, also trainer. Let's talk about that. You transitioned out of the Navy. How did you come about being a trainer, and then also writing the book, authoring the book Kaboomer?
All righty. Well, I left active duty in '97 and was involved in businesses as small as one as an entrepreneur. And I used to joke about it being a large disadvantaged business, but I had some wonderful years with Lockheed Martin Corporation, and I'm a pensioner. So that was in joking. If any corporate fathers of Lockheed Martin are listening, I really enjoyed my time with Lockheed Martin. But corporate America also looks at I believe there's more admiration now for age and treachery. If you have gray hair, you're not put out to pasture. And yet the way my chapters evolved and what I did, the more senior I got, the more weekends and nights I was working on proposals instead of doing other things. And that became, in my own equation, not as fruitful, not as rewarding, not as much purpose as I wanted. So I decided to say, what are my passions? Again, back to that, do what you love what you do, and try to make enough to live on. I've always been, the military did it, well, Boy Scouts, but then the military made me believe that you can perform better when you're fit.
Mm.
And I was honored to be a rower at the Naval Academy, and I was lucky enough to become a marathoner on my shore duty with the Navy in the running craze of the 70s and early 80s. And I was able to maintain that focus on fitness as a vital ingredient to overall wellness early on. September 11th, 2001, I found myself in London with a herniated disc, and I was not feeling very good about myself. But then I think everyone knows and everybody remembers the exact moments when they heard about the terrible towers in Shanksville and the Pentagon. So here I am on a Tuesday morning in London, stranded from my family, not knowing what's happened to them. Our daughter was at Harvard, and of course, Boston was where two of the planes took off from. So a little disconcerting to be 5 or 6 time zones away from loved ones and not know what's going on. But my point is that was a phoenix. America rose from the ashes, although we're still engaged in the global war on terror and the long war that hopefully someday will end. But in my own personal condition, I was really concerned about my family, and I was really concerned about my sciatica. This herniated disc was causing a major impact on my life, and I decided I better learn about how to overcome that after surgery and rehab. So peacetime injury, not what many of your listeners have done in combat, but I was a little banged up, and I had to learn how to overcome a little bit of adversity. And the more I learned, the more I realized being fit and being a competitor, that maybe some of my lessons I could help other people on their journeys to thrive and strive to hopefully party past 90, hopefully to beat the social security actuarial numbers that say, Dave Frost, you're going to be dead at age 85. Well, not to challenge the Social Security, but to challenge the Social Security numbers. It's my intent to make that an untrue statement. And in fact, there are many useful calculators, which I would strongly recommend to your listeners to check how you're doing in lifestyle. Simple things like flossing your teeth, wearing your seatbelt, not smoking, simple yet hard things. You might be a centenarian. That's a long time. So your listeners have to prepare for the long haul, hoping that you're going to make it. And of course, if all goes well, depending on your life goals, you're going to have a little left in your estate for your kiddos and your those that are still on the planet when you check out. Or if you want to just die on the day with no money left, that's up to you. But do know that because of technology and overall, even though obesity, COVID, mortality statistics are up, unfortunately. But for most of us, and particularly the military, I think we're a little bit better than average Americans for longevity. And I would encourage folks to accept that and learn how to make the most of their years. So, very long-winded answer. I wrote a book, Kaboomer, which talks about what I believe is physical banking, not fiscal. This is not 401 or retirement accounts. This is putting into your physical stores, your mind, your body, your gut, your nerves, to live longer and live better. So I believe that a model of strength, stability, stamina, stretching, clean sustenance, restorative sleep, and stressing not are the ingredients that will help you thrive and strive. And hopefully I give a lot of science-based and sweat-backed evidence in Kaboomer to help people understand that, hey, I see where this guy's coming from. He's a 68-year young boomer who, he's lucky enough to be a world champion in a couple rowing events. And hey, he kind of gets it. So I'm trying to help other people get it, to do that little bit extra, to take steps 2 at a time instead of taking 2 pills at a time, discretionary pills. Of course, some of our listeners certainly have some very, 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 very valid reasons for taking prescription meds. But we do know that OxyContin is, I think more people have died from opioids than they have from COVID. So something doesn't sound right about that. So if we can encourage people to live wholesome, active, and positive lifestyles, maybe polypharmacy becomes less of an issue. So Kaboomer's been out for a year, and I've been trying to stop strangers and just kind of listen well and see how they're doing in their lifestyle. Are they stressed? Cortisol is one of the most evil things going, but it's just a chemical. And we can control it. We can control it with exercise. We can control it with breathing. We can mitigate it with restorative sleep. And if you can kind of flip, as we mentioned earlier, you and I both mentioned the thrill of running to the sound of the guns. That's a young person's game, and we don't want that adrenaline rush too often in our encore years where I am. So we definitely want to learn how to mitigate cortisol. It leads to weight gain. It leads to many, many problems. Unfortunately, it can lead to alcohol abuse. So cortisol, when our adrenal system sees fight or flight too often, bad things happen. So Kaboomer tries to encourage people to think about fun and frenzy and frolicking more than fight and flight. So I want you to eat well. I want you to have fun. Certainly, as people get older, sexual health is a big deal too. That's a lot more important unless a great white shark is bearing down on you in the Atlantic or the Pacific when you're out playing. So cortisol and your adrenaline rush is a good thing, but not all the time. It's life-threatening. So that's my view. Again, I stress that it's science-backed. Science-based and sweat-backed. I don't write it if I don't do it myself. And I would hope that people would take a good look at physical banking to have a portfolio that's going to last them long and last them well. Physical banking, strength, stability, stamina, stretching, clean sustenance, restorative sleep, and stress not.
Yeah, I love that. I wrote it down. Physical banking. I love that terminology. And then you also mentioned party past 90. And talking more about the book Kaboomer, how would you define a Kaboomer?
Kaboomer. Well, to President Obama's credit, if you Dr. Googled Kaboomer, you'll find that President Obama used the term Kaboomer in a speech, but he didn't trademark it. So I'm a baby boomer. I'm smack dab in the middle of 75 million Americans born between 46 and 64. And we should be in our encore years. Our government is offering many of us Medicare and Social Security stipends as part of the Great Society. So these should be our encore years, and yet we find that metabolic syndrome, diabetes, chronic pain, arthritis, things that might be diet related, might be lifestyle related, might be genetic, and I acknowledge that. But isn't it interesting that something like 20% of all cancers are lifestyle driven or environmental toxins that we face, unfortunately, plastics and things like that. But we can do better. We can do better, and it doesn't take a lot. And golly, people feel better when they move. Motion is lotion. Queen Elizabeth just lost her husband of many years, Prince Philip, at the age of 99. Prince Philip was working out until he had that cardiac problem. And Queen Elizabeth, after, are you going to abdicate the throne and give it to your son to lead the Commonwealth? And she said, when you stop, you drop. So don't stop. Motion is lotion. Resistance training is great medicine. I just encourage people to put themselves first, and particularly in the 40s. Didn't check your decade on the planet, but particularly in the 40s, you find that job stressors, and here we're talking about people perhaps getting out of the military after a successful career in the military. That's when a lot of wheels can start to get wobbly. You start to say, well, I'll work out tomorrow, or yeah, I know I was going to work out this morning like I did in the military, but I got a Zoom meeting at 7 a.m. local time. We let life get ahead of us, and that is so wrong. But we've all done it. I've done it. Well, maybe not all, but nearly all of us have been there, done that. And it is something we can control. The Stoics in ancient Greece and Rome realized that it was very important to recognize what you can control and take care of those things, and then kind of accept what you can't control. In some ways, the military was a very stoical experience for us. There were things that we were told to do, whether or not we thought they were the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do because we were told to do it. But when you're on your own, making everyday decisions about what I can control, what I can't control, and not sweating too much what I can't control, I think is a very valuable way to look at mission success in life after service. So,
So
um,
for those, maybe we might have kaboomers that are listening. What would your advice be for those who are in their 60s, maybe late 50s and things like that? What would your advice be for them as kaboomers to?
all righty. Wonderful question. Thank you, Raiden. The first thing is I would ask everyone, and I can send you the URL, but I believe this is accurate. Living to 100, and that's 100.com/calculator. See where you are. And with a candid, very quick, very anonymous online survey developed by Dr. Thomas Pearls, you might find out that you might be looking at a lifespan that's 100 years long. Let's hope it's 100 good years, right? Everyone
Right.
dreads. It's very interesting. People my age don't worry about dying. They worry about poor quality of life as they approach the ultimate checking out. That's been written time and again, and I believe it to be true from experiencing my own parents, my parents and in-laws from the greatest generation, all dying in their 90s. They were concerned, and we became concerned about quality of life, palliative care, and the stress is caused for first responders like us when our greatest generation was winding down, becoming senescent, and having sarcopenia. So first thing is take a benchmark look. Second thing, although it's fitness related, go to the Mayo Clinic and find out how you do on well-validated measures for longevity, grip strength. How quickly do I walk a mile? What is my sit reach? Can I get up from the ground without using my hands, called the sit to rise test? How many press-ups or pull-ups can I do? Those are fairly simple. So what I worry about is people in denial. Well, I used to do push-ups. Well, what do you do now? Well, I don't do push-ups now. Well, that's a mark of longevity. What's your grip strength? Well, why would I worry about that? Well, unless you don't open jars on occasion or try to open a adult beverage top, you have to worry about grip strength. And oh, by the way, it's validated. If you have a strong grip, a mighty grip, it generally means if you get sick, you're going to recover from it because your constitution will support that. Hopefully, it also means that your immunity is good. As we know from this terrible COVID experience, it was very unique. Very fit people died, but as a macro statistic, if your immunity was up, you could handle the cytokines. And in fact, cytokines, we like cytokines. Exercise-induced inflammation from cytokines is what leads to growth and restoration.
Cytokines.
Cytokines, yeah, they're these little chemical messengers. One is a trigger. It says, "Whoa, that Raiden's doing. He's working out. He's going to be sore tomorrow." Okay, that's one. And then the body gets a signal of a cytokine that says, "Wow, we better send some fuel to those cells to rebuild, restore." And oh, by the way, we better whisper that you better get some sleep so that you can rebuild and restore. So it's a loaded issue, but I think people have heard the term cytokine storm. But cytokine is not a dirty word. It's a little protein. It's a family of many proteins. Our bodies have probably thousands of proteins I couldn't even write the formula for. But just to know that cytokines are not necessarily evil. Inflammation is not necessarily a bad thing. That's why we exercise, is to be as slightly inflamed so that when we recover with the right flows and restoration, we're a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, sleep a little better, don't stress as much. So a little knowledge is power. And hopefully in Kaboomer, I offered layman's plus knowledge, again, science-backed and sweat-based, that can help people understand what they might hear. Unfortunately, there's a tremendous amount of, pardon the expression, crap about fitness. Take this elixir or eat this magic seed and you're going to lose 3 pounds overnight. P.T. Barnum said there was a sucker born every minute. I hate to say it, but there's no free lunch and there's no fast track to fitness, wellness, weight loss. You have to do the work, and you
Right.
should do the work. It should be a journey. Even if there was a magic potent, I wouldn't take it. I'd want to earn leanness. I'd want to earn longevity. So back to your question, take an inventory, living to 100 calculator. Second, how do you do in valid longevity markers? And third, start small, pick goals that you can achieve, and start now. Never too early, never too late. People in their 80s can still build strength in the major muscle groups. We're going to shrivel a little as we get older. It happens. We can't avoid it
Yeah.
naturally. Maybe someday, science will let us beat sarcopenia, loss of flesh, but we can defer it. And we've learned our brains recover. The Salk Institute here in San Diego has a fancy term, neuroplasty. We can develop brain cells if we exercise them, and we can fend off dementia related diseases if we move. Oxygen is life. We know that. We're not fungi. We need oxygen. So by moving, we fan the fires and keep moving. So that's why I wrote Kaboomer. I learned a lot, and sometimes I've been told that I try to tell people how the watch works and telling them what time it is. But I felt it was important to give enough science-based how the watch works so that they can be more accurate label readers. I say if it isn't fresh, don't buy it, but occasionally we do buy boxed products or frozen products. Read labels, understand macronutrients, understand micronutrients, understand how important water is in our livelihood. Half of our body is water. If we don't replenish it, fatigue and worse things happen. So that's why the audio book is 8 hours long, and it's a 308-page book because there's a lot to share, and it doesn't go a mile deep because that would put people to sleep. But I hope each chapter of the 7 chapters, strength, stability, stamina, stretching, don't stress, sustenance, restorative sleep, is about an hour read. And the idea is to get people excited about getting started, regardless of your age, regardless of how banged up you are, regardless if you've been diagnosed with Parkinson's or MS. I have never seen a general study that said that exercise is counterindicated for a physical or medical condition. We're animals. We move. We're not plants. We're not fungi. We got to move. So move, folks.
Yeah, I love that advice. I mean, like, just going back to your first couple points, just finding your baseline, right? Trying to get that foundation, start that foundation, make sure you have a solid foundation, and finding out, a baseline where you can kind of start from, and and kind of develop uh, your goals from there, right? So I think that's important. And then, like to your point, like as long as we're above ground, like it's never too late to do anything.
Amen.
So
Great way to summarize it.
you
If
know,
you're consuming oxygen and you're moving, it's a good day to be alive. As I
yeah,
say, any day that ends in Y is a good day to move. So
yeah, whatever that may be that you want to do, you want to run a marathon, you want to complete an obstacle course, you want to, whatever that goal that may be, right? Like as long as you're above ground, you still can move, and you're still able to function. Like, go for it, do
that's
it, get,
it.
get out there.
And as you reach your encore years, like I am, Raiden, it's a reality check. I'm not going to be as fast or as
Yeah,
strong
yeah,
or as vital as I was when I was a college kid. My testosterone levels were higher, my heartbeat was higher. Probably my body fat was a little lower, but life changes, and that's a good thing, right? Because we gain the felicities of age, we gain experiences, and yes, our bodies change, and yet we don't have to concede early aging. In fact, I believe that we're learning enough to be able to what is now called super aging by doing natural things like moving,
yeah.
getting enough sleep, not stressing, and working out. Both resistance training and stamina training. Motion is medicine. And maybe you'll find that you're going to beat the Social Security statistics like I hope to do.
One more question before we go into our second segment here, Dave. What a lot of people who might, are getting to that age, right? They're getting older. Why do they use that excuse for not trying anything different, or like not going for their specific goal, too old? Like why is that like always an excuse?
A loaded question and a simple yet hard answer, I believe. George Burns smoked cigars, which I don't recommend, but if maybe, for your daughter's wedding, your son's wedding, or whatever, that's not smoking, that's celebration. But George Burns had a good life. He laughed a lot, which is very important. Laughing and hugging and humming, believe it or not, laughing, hugging, and
Yeah,
humming are
that's
very, very, very important for aligning your body, blowing off the small stuff that can hassle you in life. But George Burns lived to over 100. So did Bob Hope. Jack LaLanne didn't quite make it. Some of your listeners may be too young to remember this guy in spandex who had all these vital women around him. He was the first guy to advocate in a public way weight training for women. Isn't that interesting?
yeah.
And strong is the new skinny for both men and women. It's good to be lean, but it's much better to have muscle, because muscle, again, you got to move your joints, and muscles are what move joints. And he lived to 96. His epitaph reads, "It's better to wear out than rust out."
Mm.
And if you think of cortisol and bad things happening as rust, inflammation is rust. You think about clean diet and exercise to wear out someday. And yet we have learned there's really only two ways to extend how often the life of your cells, how often they regenerate. One is to go into space. Kelly, one of the twins that went into space for a year, came back, and his telomeres, that's the shoelaces on the end of your DNA in each of your cells, were longer. The only other way to lengthen your telomeres naturally than going into space is to exercise. It's the way to offset this thing called senescence. It's the way to offset zombie cells. They don't really die, but they just kind of clog up your system and cause inflammation and disease and things. And guess how we do? We offset zombies, which I've never watched those zombie things on TV. They don't interest me, but
Yeah.
zombie cells interest me, and I want to try to offset them by moving. So starting with small steps, it could be a 20-minute walk, hopefully outside to get vitamin D, boost your immunity, get bonded with nature. But just start small, move, celebrate life, hug, laugh, and hum.
Humming. I do that. I got to do that more often with my little one. So.
And there you go. And it's a valid reason. I suspect you have to break here, but your vagus nerve is a central nervous system. It's a cranial nerve that goes from your noggin to your gut. And it's kind of like your information superhighway. Hopefully the Russians won't hack it. But I'm just joking. But humming is a way to keep that central nervous system going, to align your mind and body, to relax you. And hey, that's pretty simple, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
hey, folks, I'm being healthy. I'm humming. I'm not being, antisocial. But yeah, humming is proven to work on the vagus nerve, and it is true. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So it's just so.
All right, Dave. So going to our second segment of the podcast here. This is what I call the Fast Five. It's basically the same 5 questions I ask all my guests.
Okay.
All right, Dave, are you ready?
One sip, and then I will be.
All right.
Locked and loaded.
First question: what's one hobby you enjoy?
By far and away, messing with the grandkids, but as a sport, it's rowing. A big part of my livelihood, big part of my story, my journey, my rising from the ashes on September 11th, the sport of rowing.
Okay. Next question: if you had to choose one person to hang out with for one day, who would it be and why?
I was a speechwriter for a bit, and I believe that we may be losing the power of the word a little bit. So speaking like Churchill is, to me, would be awesome. I mean, the guy, I'm not a gin drinker. Hopefully I'm not much of a drinker anyway, but that guy was there at the right time to inspire a nation that, against all odds, held on until America could get mobilized and defeat Hitler on the battlefields of Europe. But I'd have to say many awesome people. It could be Lincoln, could be Washington. I haven't met Colin Powell, though I'd love to chat with him about his journey. Golly, so many people. But if there was one long-winded answer, Sir Winston Churchill.
Mm. Great personnel from the 20th century, definitely for sure. Next question, Dave. Recommend a book for our audience to read.
Any audience, but particularly if I know your listeners, it would be When. It's a science-based look at timing by Daniel Pink, and that's like the color pink. When, W-H-E-N, talks about some people are nighthawks, some people are early birds. When are the best times for your meetings in the office place? Jeff Bezos knows what's the best time for meetings at Amazon. He's done pretty well. So when is extraordinarily useful. Pink did a nice job. He didn't do it by himself, I'm sure. But I reference it in Kaboomer because I believe some people do better working out at particular times a day. If you want to set a personal record, it's not early in the morning, it's late in the afternoon. If you want to get in good cardio, it's like Jocko Willink. Do it in the morning like Navy SEALs do. So when is, and hey, unpaid mention of Daniel Pink's book. It is awesome, and I would highly recommend When to everyone. Yeah.
Okay. Make sure you guys check that out. When. Next question. What's your favorite quote and why?
I'm not a tremendous Star Wars fan. I didn't watch all 9 of those wonderful episodes. But, you know, isn't it interesting that the vision of Lucas and Spielberg to come up with that, the characters from Star Wars, that little shriveled guy, do or do not, there is no try. I mean, and we know that from the military, it's results, right? It's mission success, hopefully ethically, tactically, without loss, all that sort of stuff. But, you know, it's almost like a haiku, isn't it? Yoda, a Jedi, and, you know, he's pretty powerful. It wasn't, you know, his age he used as a strength. Do or do not, there is no try.
Yeah, it's a great quote. I mean, yeah, like yourself, I'm not a big Star Wars fan, but gotta agree with that. Great quote. Last question here, Dave. Where do you see yourself in a year, 5 years, or even 10 years from now?
Good Lord willing, tactically a year from now, I hope to be doing what I'm doing, trying to excite people about staying well past 40, way past 40. I hope to be competing. I hope to be messing around with the grandkids and making my wife a happy camper and into our 5th decade together. So that's 1 year. 5 years, boy, I'll be, I'll have to tap, getting back to fiscal management, not physical banking, but fiscal banking. The powers that be in our government say I'm going to have to start to withdraw my IRA account. So I've got to spend a little time figuring out what to do with my modest nest egg that corporate America and I have been able to assimilate and hopefully pay my taxes, but not more than my share of taxes. So that's 5 years. And then just want to keep thriving and striving. It's a great day. You know, there's so many great quotes by comedians. Paul Reiner left us earlier, I believe this year in mid-90s, a wonderful comedian. And he said, you know, I get up a little slower than I used to. But if I read the obituaries and I'm not in the obituaries, it's a good day. Yeah. So 10 years from now, I'm going to be reading the obituaries and not find my name. So it's, you know, we're going to be dead for a long time. And I really hope I've earned some more laps around the sun and hopefully make the world a little bit of a better place, helping wounded warriors, helping underserved, and just trying to be an example and thanking this country for letting me get in the military, learn job skills, life skills, meet my wife, get a GI Bill for my home, funded my master's degree. Boy, I hope our nation will always recognize what the armed services do for this country. So hopefully until the day I die, every day will be Memorial Day, and every day will be a day to celebrate Veterans Day, and so on, Flag Day as well. So those 3, Veterans Day, Flag Day, Memorial Day, until the day I die, the flag will go out. So amen
to that, man. Dave, thank you for sharing your story. And, like to our point earlier, as long as you're above ground, as long as you're still moving, there's always opportunity. There's always a chance for you to do, reach out for your goals, do what you want to do, man. And I think you're a living example of that. You're showing everybody, especially the Kaboomers like yourselves, and a great example for them as well. So Dave, before we go, how can our audience member, how can they stay in touch with you? How can they support you?
Well, I would love to extend my thanks to your military listeners. And this is a sincere offer. If you let me know, go to well past 40, and that's spelled out FORTY. So wellpast40.com, fill out the contact form and just say, send Kaboomer. I'll get and give me, and then we'll engage in conversation and get your address. I'll send you either an audio version, a Kindle version, or a paperback version of this journey of mine, and maybe help you line up your own resources and mindset to thrive and strive to party past 90. So wellpast40.com. I'm on Twitter. I'm not very good at social media, but I'm on Twitter at DEFP Trainer. Instagram is Kaboomer Coach, and that's K's, Kaboomer, and then Coach with a K. On Facebook, it's Facebook Well Past 40, and email Dave at wellpast40. I'd be honored to send to anyone who is steely-eyed enough to opt in. I do have a text-based tickler system for tips, hips, and hacks for fitness and wellness tips, and I add to that with my own blogs. So there are this Navy veterans attempts to encourage others to live longer and live better by text, by email, by reading, by listening, and just saddle up and move out. Motion is medicine. So
that, man. Motion is medicine. I got some great quotes here. Physical banking. Make sure you always contribute to that, so that you can continue to party past 90.
Amen.
And well past your 40, right? Dave, I appreciate you for sharing your story, and just sharing us your passion and your purpose and your second service after the Navy. And guys, gals, Kaboomers, make sure you all reach out to him on all the social media pages. Go to wellpast40.com. Look him up on LinkedIn and on Facebook, wellpast40. And on Instagram, you say Kaboomer Coach with K, and get some of that party past 90 and well past 40. Dave, thank you for sharing your story, and I'll talk to you soon, bud.
Thanks for the opportunity. To your listeners, God bless you, and just lifelong service. You'll do it. I know you will.
All right, take care, Dave.